Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order for September 12th at 7 o'clock. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. May I have a motion to go into executive session? Martin Make moves. John seconds. And all in favor? Okay. So we're going to go into executive session, but as I said earlier, it won't be long, okay? Okay, may I have a motion to go back into regular session? Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Terrific, unanimous. Okay, tonight we are going to begin our meeting with a presentation on transfer station fees, and I would like to open this with Ed Gentile as our speaker. He will explain the request for the changes. Ed is, for the audience, our Director of Public Works.
Sorry. A little bit lighter now. Good evening, Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works for the town of Darien. I'm going to give you one more thing, and I apologize. I was supposed to put this in. You folks had at least the highlights of what was being requested on our sheet that we sent out to all of the haulers and any of the residents who wants to see it. Make it easier for you.
Thank you.
Okay. So in front of you today, I know I had submitted a memo so that you had a better understanding of what I was looking to do and what items I was looking to change. Hopefully with some really good explanations on where we're coming from with regards to tipping fees and residential dump permits. But first let me say, as you all know now, the last time these rates were increased, I'm not saying all of them, there were some of them that were left unchanged, was July of 2013. And I did comment in, because my predecessor had commented also, that the Board of Selectmen have decided to raise some user fees to keep an eye on the year-to-year expenses as they increased, to try to keep up with and keep the gap closed between our revenue and our expenses line item for this cost center. So first, let me talk about the tipping fees. Current fees in Darien, we charge our haulers as they come through and get on the scale are $94 a ton. We are currently being charged by Wind Waste, which was recently bought out City Carting. They're charging us $99.37 to take that same material off-site to their site to dispose of it. That's a contractual number that we have with them. That number will remain for this year and next fiscal year, at which time June 30th of 2024, our contract with Wind Waste will expire. I'll give you a little piece of information on that so that you have a full comprehension of where we're going. The contract with Wind Waste, I say it has 2 more years. Those are fixed. It's a fixed price, but we are currently negotiating with them. We meet just about every 3 or 4 months to review some information. But right now, they will be starting their negotiation with Norwalk. And from what we're told, that negotiation and that contract will pretty much set the bar for us to see. We have and do things a little bit differently in Darien, so hopefully that will impact that transfer station number and the running of that, and the recycling, MSW numbers, and so on. Was encouraged to hear that from our contact there at Wind Waste, that they won't be exactly the same, but there'll be opportunities for the town to make good on how well we run our transfer station and how well we keep it. So in the memo, I have asked that the proposed tipping fees for haulers to dispose at our station be bumped up to $118 per ton. I did pull some information from area towns for their tipping fees. I did include them on the final page so you could see them. Where Norwalk was 95, Stanford 101, Westport 110, Greenwich 112, Buchanan 120 per ton. I did a little soul searching when I picked 118. Didn't want to be the highest, but wanted to stay in the neighborhood a little bit. So I went down to 118. I say that in the essence of trying to keep a competitive bid and trying to keep some of the haulers coming to us, because basically, if that number is accepted, the town will make and generate a revenue from the haulers bringing in their waste. There is also an opportunity that city carting would like to increase their drop-off at our transfer station. And in doing that, pay us $118 a ton to do that. Yet still just charging us $99 to take it off site. Their increase will double the use of our transfer station for MSW. We have an opportunity per year to bring in about $125,000 a year more for the next 2 years. So we're looking at that, working out the details with city carting will be something that we'll probably do over the next month or so. But first I have to tie in a proper MSW disposal fee for the town to charge before I want to take on any more waste. Just to jump to table A, I did show you on the top portion of table A, the two differences. The MSW from haulers would generate about $40,000 revenue increase just based on this year, but I reduced the amount of tonnage from 2,600 to 2,000 just in case there were some haulers decided they didn't want to come back. So I tried to be conservative. And you'll see on the last page, the MSW tonnage by hauler per year. You can see how it, FY22 we're at 2,600, but FY21, 549, 20, 293, 248, and FY19. We've become very popular over the last 7 months. So with that said, that kind of covers the tipping fees. I don't know I'll just go right into the questions. That was my thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate for questions?
So table B, it shows the FY23 proposed revenue of $752 versus $1 million in FY22. Does the 752 reflect the rate increases, and why is that number so much less than revenue for this fiscal year?
It does not. That is what's out in the budget book right now.
Oh, that's just, okay, so that doesn't reflect a new calculation on your part in terms
No,
of what you think that?
not at all.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry.
So the entities that dump, take the grass clippings, chips, the construction people who deposit the municipal solid waste in our dump, you raise the fees. Well, they're just gonna pass that on to their customers.
Mhm.
So do you have an idea of what does that mean to the Darien taxpayer? So, okay, great, we're gonna charge the haulers, those entities more, but they're going to raise their rates. The guy who cuts people's grasses here in Darien, he's just gonna raise his rates to cover that. So it's really going to be an increase to our taxpayers, although are you telling me, and I don't know the population of entities that dump at our transfer station. Is it like mostly people from out of town and other areas, and they come here and deposit their municipal solid waste, or are these contractors and people who are doing work in Darien who then come to our transfer station?
It's a very good question. And the good part about what I'm looking at right now, the majority of our weight in MSW is garbage. Right? Construction weight, grass clippings, leaves, branches, brush, not so much. That is the minority in comparison. So what's really going to be impacted are the haulers that come to your house if they take your garbage away. So what I did was I calculated that, because I thought that was a good question, and I thought, maybe someone would ask that. So what I did was I took the average household that uses about 1.5 tons per year of garbage they dispose of. That's a good solid average. Again, most of the haulers will tell you that. And our tipping fee going from 94 to 118 works out to be $24 a ton increase. Or if you do by pound, it's $0.015, a little under $0.015. So therefore, 3,000 pounds, $0.015, turns out to be $36 a year. Divided by 12 is about $3 a month. And that would be the increase just to get rid of your garbage. Now, I'm pretty sure if the haulers are going to increase their costs, and it's a business, they have insurance costs, they have labor costs, they have diesel costs to run their trucks. That's all going to be wrapped up into a cost increase to whoever has their haulers come to their house and take their garbage away. But I wanted to show you that number, I wanted to give you that number, because I didn't think it was fair if they came in or said out loud that we had to raise it $15 a month because the town raised their tipping fees. So I thought that was a good way to give you what magnitude just the cost of disposal would be.
It's $36 a year.
Yes.
Ed, do you know, you said the last time that rates were increased was in 13. Do you know what the haulers increased then?
I do not.
No, okay.
I do.
Just a couple of quick questions. In Table A, you have cost avoidance for haulers of $12,000. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, without an increase, if I left it at 94, it's going to cost the town $12,000.
Got it, because that's what I was going to ask. Okay, so the question I ask is, if you have from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 22 an increase of over 2,000 tons, and we're operating at a loss of what, $5 a ton, we've been paying more because more people are coming with garbage, so we're paying our losses tremendously
which is the
increased,
reason
which is why we
I-
need to do this. Okay, that's a big jump in municipal solid.
It was shocking.
Are they not going to other places because they've raised their rates and they're coming here because it's less expensive?
Really, another good question. I have some reasons I hear for you
Yeah.
too, because I listed them. So why the increase, right? So we had the Hartford incinerator is closing, or is closed. Wheelabrator is not taking on any additional customers. As a matter of fact, they're cutting back on any new tonnage from certain haulers. They give you a limit. City Carting or Wind Waste is limited on their floor space to, I believe, $1,000 a ton. They end up closing early during the day. So if you're a garbage man and you're running a route and you're done at 1:30 and you go to City Carting, no place for you to dump.
Wow.
So they end up at our site also. Not to mention that where they used to take it because it was so much cheaper, Wheelabrator and Bridgeport, diesel pricing right now to drive your truck up I-95 during rush hour is very expensive. So there are 4 really good reasons why we jumped to 5 times the tonnage just from our haulers over this last fiscal year. And you're going to see later too during the transfers of where I was impacted the most by this increase.
Can you go into capacity and where we are and what we can take in from other communities?
The conversation about whether City Carting would bring us some additional tonnage because what that would do to their 1,000-ton floor space, it would open up space. They could come here, they'd drop it off. They could move it out at their leisure and open up space for more contractors to go to Taylor Reed and Stanford. So right now, we currently have 1,000 tons per day availability. We use about 30. So the DEP has allowed us to do, on our operating, 6,000 tons a week. From what City Carting would like to do is they'd like to increase our usage to another 25 tons per day.
So we're not anywhere close to our capacity.
And we'd be nowhere close to our capacity. We figured that to be about maybe 4 to 6 trucks additional a day. I don't believe that would impact our running of that transfer site, nor would jeopardize safety in any way, or the availability for our residents to use that facility whenever they'd like.
So you don't think additional staff would be needed if we started to see significant jumps?
If it would be on them to bring it. That's city staff, city carting staff, or wind waste staff that runs the transfer station up there. I don't believe they would. They dump off of those trucks onto the floor, into the hopper. It's a compactor, and they come and they back a truck up to that compactor and they pull it out and take it away.
Compactor's all fixed?
It is now.
Yeah.
And it happens. It
No, I
happens
just felt bad
once
for
in
the
a while.
guys because everyone keeps coming and, yeah, it's all.
But I have to say, since I've been here, they are very responsive in making sure that garbage gets out of there. And we're the first to know when things go down.
Thank you.
One last question on that. So back to the city carting thing. Is this just a verbal agreement? I mean, are we signing a contract? Are we?
They are actually a listed hauler for the town, and they can dump at our site right now. But they didn't want to start doing that without at least talking to us about it. And I think we may need to work out some special details for them,
Right.
especially with the size of their trucks, the additional number that'd be coming in. I think I would need to speak to them about process, any type of policies they want to put in place for safety and things like that before they start doing that.
Okay.
Okay, next part? Or,
We're just doing the public hearing right now.
okay.
So you're on to the next part for the transfer station? Increase in fees.
Residential dump permits is the
Perfect,
next one.
perfect.
All right. So we're looking at a increase on both the residents with or without haulers. I'm proposing that I go from a $40 dump sticker to a $50. The ones that have a hauler and the ones that do not have a hauler go from $120 to $150. Both increases are 25%. Again, the last time that they were adjusted were back in July of 2013. The senior permits will not change with regards to them acquiring a free one. The second and third ones will be $50. They'll jump to the same rate as the home garbage, resident with a home garbage collection, as it is right now. I did show you a graph with both of them listed, existing and proposed conditions. I'd like to add that I know that we have residents that are paying for haulers right now. So why $40 to $50? Why the change? There are other things that go on at the dump, at the transfer station that they benefit from. There are disposals of logs, brush, leaves and grass, and construction debris. All of those things have increased in cost. They do avail themselves to pick up wood chips and compost at their leisure. It's free. There's no charge for that. And I had to add here at the end, of course, we do have the swap shop now. I understand it's a hot topic, but then again, it is benefiting the town in more ways than just one. So I'm going to give you just a couple numbers with households. We currently have, let's do 50. FY21, we had 4,691, so 4,691 residents or households had a RDA sticker to use our facility. This past year, FY22, we topped out at 4,893, highest since I've been here. In Table A again, I did include the increases and showed you the additional increase revenue. I will tell you, I scaled back some of the numbers on the residents, just in case a couple of them decided that they didn't need it. We're going to go a different route. Again, trying to be a little conservative with the overall increased revenue generator. I do want to say that I did check some area hauler rates for home garbage collection. As you'll see that one of the paragraphs tell you that They run between $50 to $60 a month. That's what I was getting. 600 to 720 per year. Even with the increase in the low end, it'd still be a savings to homeowners of about $450 if they stayed without a hauler. I will also mention that these numbers that I've proposed are my numbers. This is like a menu for you folks right now. You don't have to change anything. You could only change one thing. You could change multiple things. You can pick a rate of your own. I just gave you what I thought was in the best interest of the town to keep up with the cost, but still be fair to the residents. And I hope I've explained that to you well. The final thing I'd like to tell you, we do charge, honestly, not just haulers, but any type of contractors that want to bring their waste, whether it be construction debris, leaves, MSW, grass, whatever. We do have a commercial plate account. We charge them $150 a year to renew it, making sure that they're still valid with us and they're up to date on their charges. We currently have 124 accounts. We have 270 active plates. We're not changing that rate at all. We're going to leave that the same. Generates the town about $40,000 a year. It's a good way to keep control of our clients, if you will, coming through the gate, who they are, changing their information, changing their truck information or whatever they're using. Make sure we keep up with that. In case we have any problems, we know exactly where to go. That's all I have for you, unless you have some questions.
And the effective date on the tipping fees, commercial haulers?
I would like to do it as soon as possible for the haulers. And I think in the memo I asked for that. But also mentioned that if the RDA permits, the RDA stickers, the permits for the residents, we could always wait until the next, beginning the sale of the next ones for FY24. I usually start unofficially in April. We have them. We do try to run our sale of our stickers about the same time that the Parks and Rec sells their beach passes. I run a little short on staff, so I don't really announce it, but the seniors have picked up on it, so they come up in April while they're here getting their stickers.
Up
And
upstairs.
more than happy to sell it to them. But I start getting lines in May, so that's when my seasonal starts, when my staff is out of college and I have a young person that they're running it. So try to kind of balance that every year.
Kate, do you agree with his recommendations or different point of view?
Yes, Ed reviewed his recommendations with Jen Charneski and me when he first put them together.
Okay.
And I think the only thing that I would add is that I did say to Ed, we're not waiting 10 years
Right.
for the next one.
Mm.
I think we should review these every other year. Even if you decide to make no changes, they ought to be reviewed on a regular basis.
Especially given the inflation environment
Mhm.
we're in, that's important, I agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Any other questions?
So procedurally, are we going to vote on these
No.
tonight?
You're going
This is
to-
just to
you're gonna-
discuss? or-
No, you are going to vote
Okay.
later in the agenda.
Okay.
Now we're going to open it up to public comment. Kathy? Well, there are two people. Rolf?
No, go ahead.
So Kathy,
Don't everybody run down, you know,
I know.
run to be first, right?
So you give us your name and address.
Yes, my name is Kathy Finnegan. I live at 22 Patricia Lane in Darien. I'm much better speaking extemporaneously, but to keep it short, and I had a couple of key points, so I'm gonna, you know, people don't like to be read to. I'm gonna try to keep it interesting, but short. I'm speaking as a private citizen tonight, but I should disclose that I'm in my 4th year as a member of the Selectmen's Advisory Committee on Sustainability. Interestingly, the name of the committee was initially the Energy and Recycling Committee. And it was really formed at about those 10 years ago time frame of the fees, and the process of the folks that were involved then was to look at the transfer station and understand the costs and its operations and how it could be improved for the town of Darien. I was not involved. During my 4 years on the committee, its mission has expanded to incorporate a broader definition of sustainable practices, but waste reduction really remains at the core of a lot of what that committee looks into and talks about and works with that on. I never imagined how much I would learn about garbage, about the dump, and about the volunteers who have made a passion that you may or may not know to reduce waste as we talk in this community over time. So as to raising the tipping fees and dump permits, I've come to the personal conclusion that this is inevitable, maybe should have been sooner. And I'm not sure if folks in town are aware of the depth of the challenge ahead, and I hope that the discussion about raising the fees you're having tonight is really the beginning of a broader conversation, not the end. And I'd like to explain that. Basically, you may all know, but basically, the bigger picture is that the state is running out of capacity to process waste. I didn't know one of the comments you made about the sudden increase related to Hartford. Several articles published in the Connecticut Mirror in May detailed the crisis. I've got the links to those if anyone wants to read them. I'll hand them in. The first article begins, if there is such a thing as a monumentous year in trash collection, 2022 could be one. And then it might have to be. And the second article quotes experts as saying, getting food waste, more euphemistically organics, out of the waste stream won't solve the state's waste disposal problems, but it's widely recognized those problems won't be solved without doing that. And I think you could substitute Darien for state in those statements. So a broad range of folks throughout Connecticut, people from Darien, are studying these challenges and looking at assessing solutions. And they relate to food recycling, they relate to unit-based pricing. I mean, they're across the board. And my point is not to discuss those, or I would have an opinion on them. But Laura Francis, the first selectman of Durham and co-chair of the Connecticut Coalition for Sustainable and Materials Management, recently stated there are various models to choose from, and all should be on the table. So if for context, in Connecticut, we produce about 2.4 million tons of trash a year. About 1.4 million are managed in in-state incinerators, and about 1 million tons are shipped out of state to other states' landfills. Complicating the situation, as Ed said, the closure of the trash-to-energy facility in Hartford this month and decreasing markets for certain recyclables puts more back in the solid waste stream, in our municipal waste stream. Now imagine that 30% of all that waste is organics, and that's food. So imagine if we can separate out much of the weight of what goes into our things that we then have to pay for the ton to haul. Imagine, the change in calculus that could occur. So sort of to wrap up, paying more for waste removal, from my perspective, is inevitable because of the broader situation we're all dealing with. And I've come to personally believe that reimagining waste policy is going to happen, but that pricing is part of that and reducing volume is equally important. Ed gives you all the numbers. We process about 5 tons of municipal solid waste in 12 months. We divert about as much through single stream and other recycling. We removed 40 tons through food scraps, but 40 tons is just a dip in the bucket of what is out there. If you consider that of our 5,000 tons, 20% of that could very well be just organics that is getting thrown in. So we're in a good place. We divert a lot. We have been we've been a leader. Ed said, when people want to visit your transfer station, you must be doing something right. Who knew that we'd be giving tours of the dump to other communities? But we are. The swap shop and the food scrap program have become models for other communities. New Canaan has implemented both recently, And we've been recognized by Sustainable CT for the efforts in waste reduction that we've done. It's one of the stronger parts of our application. So in closing, food scrap program as implemented is a start, but it is a start. And I hope that we can consider over time, Ed's gonna kill me because he doesn't want me to think about any more work on his part, that we consider new waste reduction efforts, expanding the food scrap recycling program which right now is voluntary and limited, and we can just leave it at that. There's a lot more to it that if anyone wants to know. I understand, our committee understands, Ed understands. Public education, you have a new person in communications to help our community understand why the fees are going up and why reducing what we toss is the only solution to this problem over time. So with that, I just ask to keep your minds open, be willing to have conversations, listen to experts, and figure out a way that we can move forward with waste, which is a subject, as I said, I never thought I'd be standing in front of you people, feeling like it's important and we need to talk about more publicly than we do. And I want to publicly thank Ed because of all he does to put us in a place where we already are very much of a leading edge community, but we're not an island in the state, and the fact that people are coming to us now just blew my mind. I did not know that fact today. That's almost it's a positive, but it's a scary thought. So thank you for listening to me, and our commission meets every 2 months a month. Again, I'm not speaking for the commission. We haven't discussed this. I read the newsletter. I saw you were doing this, and I felt very much from my own personal experience that this is a big issue that nobody really ever wants to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rolf Hoban. I live at 9 Archer Lane. And in full disclosure as well, I am a member of the RTM on the Public Works Committee. And so I'm sure you're all aware of the situation that's going on in our country with regards to the inflation. And increases are occurring everywhere. So I think Ed's analysis was excellent. And I think it's a reasonable proposal that he put forth. Again, he gave you a menu to choose from to come up with some solution to the problem, but I don't think it can be left unaddressed. We can't be running in a continual deficit in that facility. So I don't think we really have much of a choice but to bite the bullet. With regards to how much we're processing, I would have to dovetail with Kathy and what she said. I think there's no magic bullet that's going to answer all the problems, and the problems are only getting worse because, as she pointed out, with the closure in Hartford, and that was done with absolutely no plan as a backup whatsoever for the townships that were affected. They just closed, and all those townships had to scramble to find alternatives. It was terribly managed, and I would say the state of Connecticut, in regards to disposal of all of our state's municipal waste, has been missing in action because this has been going on for a long, long time. This didn't happen overnight. And there are other facilities, incinerators in the state that are also, I think, at some point going to have a similar fate. So the problem is just going to get worse. So one thing that Kathy points out is the whole issue of food. Right now we do have a program, and it has been relatively successful, but it's strictly on a volunteer basis. And so it's something I think that as time goes by, should be further considered as being more than just a voluntary situation in order to remove all of that out of our regular disposal. There is a company in Southington, Connecticut, Quantum Biopower, and they are taking food and they are converting it into a gas that can be burned, and it's used to generate power. So there are answers to separating that food, and it can be utilized in more than just separating it out from our garbage. And so I think the town needs to start to consider some idea on how to approach that. What idea specifically, as Kathy said as well, I don't have the answers, But I think it's somewhat inevitable in order to try and keep some control to the volume. And even still, with the new projects that are coming online soon, I think, you know, our amount of waste in the town is only just going to go up. So that's all I really have to say tonight. And thank you for allowing us to speak.
Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, I will now close the public hearing. Okay, next item on the agenda is the first Selectmen's report. And Darien Health Department now lists the number of positive COVID cases each week. Rather than home testing, they do positivity percentages. There were 17 cases reported between August 30th and September 5th. Last Thursday, I attended a public hearing in Westport on a proposed Aquarian rate hike. The proposed rate increase is significant, and it should be, I'm sure, will be concerning for many residents. So presently, I've requested additional data to get a better understanding of how this will impact Darien residents. Information on how to submit public comment can be found on our town homepage, and they're requesting public comment be submitted by October 25th. And I will be providing more information on this as I receive it. I, along with some of my fellow selectmen, had the pleasure of attending the ribbon cutting ceremony at the Oxridge Elementary School academic wing this Saturday. There was a tour of the facility also, and I think everyone was very impressed with the many features of the construction that make it a very progressive learning environment. Once again, I'd like to thank the members of the Oxridge Building Committee for the work already completed, and I look forward to the completion of the next phase of the project. And I sincerely thank this committee. They and the HHR committee do a tremendous amount of work, and it is really, really appreciated by our residents. In spite of some recent rainfall, we are still in a stage 2 drought. I know the cooler evenings are the perfect time to get that fire pit out, but our fire marshal is still urging residents to be careful when you're lighting that. Yesterday marked the 21st anniversary of the tragic events of 9/11. I was honored to attend the annual ceremony at the monument behind Middlesex Middle School with fellow selectmen, emergency responders, and residents. And I'm sure that most people reflect on their own personal memories of that day, and in one way or another acknowledge the depth of grief for all that lost loved ones. Here in Darien, we are very fortunate to have a very talented population of people that are willing to share their skills. And today I'd like to specifically recognize the many volunteers on our advisory committee, Sustainability, Advisory Board of Health, the Advisory Commission on Coastal Waters, the Advisory Committee on Sustainability, and the Government Access Advisory Committee, TV 79, looking at you, for all the work that you do. Would also like to thank all of the residents that have expressed an interest in joining the RTM. I would remind you that it's not too late to get those 25 signatures from other residents in your district to Town Hall by tomorrow, and that will ensure that you're on the ballot in November. The Board of Selectmen will be discussing the town flag policy at our next regular meeting on September 26th. Our meeting on Monday, October 3rd, will include an information session dedicated to water management and flooding. This is a really important meeting for members of our community, and because our panel of professionals will review the history of flooding in Darien, discuss protective measures that may be taken before, during, and after storms, and that's for residents and business owners. I visited a children's art walk that was sponsored by Coffee on Saturday. It's a walk from the library to Town Hall. The first time it happened was in 2020, so this was their second. And once the children reached Town Hall, they were given the opportunity to share a wish for our community. And they wrote the wish on a ribbon, and they tied it to the evergreen trees that are in front of Town Hall. So If you need a little pick-me-up, I suggest you go and take a look at some of these. They're truly adorable. On Sunday, September 18th, there will be 500 runners. No, I will not be one of them, participating in the Darien Road Race. The 500 runners is a big deal. So the police have issued a traffic advisory for short-term delays and detours. I'll give you an idea. The impacted roads will be Pear Tree, Long Neck, Goodwives, Sunswick, Torrey Hole, Delafield Island, Redcoat Pass, Old Kings Highway South, Locust Hill, and Andrews Drive. And also boat launches from Pear Tree Beach will be suspended between 8 and 11. The race is organized by the Community Fund for the benefit of the Youth and Family Services Program in Darien, Norwalk, and Stamford. And I wish all of the luck to the runners that are going to be participating on. It sounds like a whole lot of streets to me. So that's it for my report. Kate, do you have anything?
Just as you can see from the agenda tonight, those are all fiscal '22 transfers. We are in the process of cleaning up last year. We are also getting ready for next year. During the pandemic, we had stopped having our staff off-site meetings where we spend a half a day on, usually it's HR or budget topics. So we're coming back together in October. We're going to have a meeting at the police department in their training center where department heads will get a refresher on how to do their budget, and we'll talk about any budgetary issues. Other than that, we've been doing a lot of staffing. Our HR director has been doing a lot of interviewing since she got here, so we're filling some vacancies where we can, and that's it.
Okay. Board liaison reports. We'll start with you, Mike.
Blight will be meeting on Wednesday, so we'll have a report after that.
This Wednesday.
This Wednesday.
Right, okay. Thank you. Sir?
The Hindley Homes and Royal Building Committee will be meeting this Wednesday, September 14th. It is a virtual meeting, and we will have the link posted. Right now, we're still looking at design and focusing to make sure that all of the needs of the administration and the schools are being met, and we have everything that we need in the school design. And we are thanking and saying goodbye to one of our members by the name of Randy and Geraldo. And so we do ask for those who are interested in the community to submit their name and information over to Linda O'Leary in the First Selectmen's office if they're interested. And we appreciate any town volunteers that are interested in doing that. The Thriving Youth Task Force will meet for the first time this year and on September 15th on Thursday in the morning. And so we're looking forward to getting together and starting that work again.
And they meet how often?
Once every other month.
Every other month?
So November will be the next one after that.
Okay. John?
IT meets on Thursday, more to come.
Okay. Marks? Sure.
So we have not, Oxford Building Committee has not met since the last meeting. However, I did have the honor of being able to go to the ribbon cutting on Saturday, and being a member of the Oxford community, I've been getting a lot of feedback from teachers and from the kids as well, and everybody is really, really excited about how the school looks. Certainly they went in with a bang and saw this beautiful school when they went in on the first day. Teachers are, doing all the best that they can because it's only 50% done. So using some of those extra space, the multi-purpose room, the cafeteria, they are really working very hard to try to, provide the services and doing great. So I just want to say a huge thank you for the staff for being as accommodating throughout this project as they can. And certainly the kids are really having a great time in their new school. Yesterday, we met with the Behavioral Health Programming Subcommittee, and lots of work has been happening from the Mental Health Task Force. Certainly yesterday, we really got together and talked about some of the opportunities for programs. Everybody knows that, if you had kids in the school systems, you had a half day the first day of school because they did QR training for all the teachers and all of the staff, which seemed to go really well. They're going to do a follow-up on that in a couple of weeks when they have Professional Development Day. Teachers and staff were certainly super appreciative of it. One announcement that I do want to make, we are going to start to do a promotional push for the Out of the Darkness Walk, which is done by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. That is on October 22nd. I have myself participated in that for over 10 years. It's an amazing walk. It's done in Westport. You walk through, there's a route, they've changed it since last year, but It's about a 1.5-mile walk. You can put a team together. It's a really great opportunity for people that have survivors of loss or have known someone to get together and sort of celebrate the lives of those they've lost, as well as, you know, have conversations about mental health. So we talked about that as a task force, putting that together, promoting that within town. I think it'd be a really great opportunity for many of our members to get involved. The second thing that we're working on is something called Survivors Day, which is on November 19th. Norton Presbyterian has offered their space. What Survivors Day is another opportunity for survivors of suicide, which have been directly impacted, to get together, and they do a little bit of, not necessarily training, but more of grief therapy, grief talk, and sort of community involvement. So we're working on putting that together. As soon as I get that information, I'll make sure that you can get it out. The third is we're planning more resiliency-focused presentations now that we've passed the 3-month mark of our losses that we've had in town. We can start to talk about how we can do resiliency training within our community. So we're looking at taking adult resiliency training, teen resiliency training, and child resiliency training, and doing a speaker series on some of that work. And the fourth, the Hub, Victoria O'Neill from the Hub is going to be working on putting QR training together that will be available to all residents of town, just not the teachers and administrators. So very, very busy. We have lots of work to do. We're meeting 3 or 4 times over the course of the next 2 months, so we're hitting the ground running.
Mars, can you go through the 3-month explain?
So when we got together with the Hub and got together with Family Child Center, one of the things that they talk about is giving a grief period of 3 months before we kind of start to talk about training on preventative training. So that 3-month is a time period for mostly healing and reflective, and that's all given information that we've got from therapists and psychologists who say that we really should take a moment to pause before we get into resiliency training. So that's kind of why things have been a little quiet throughout the summer, to allow these families to go through the grief and the community to go through the grief they needed to before we get into the preventative stuff.
And the walk is when?
The walk is on October 22nd. It's in Westport, as I said. You can get more information on that if you go to afsp.org. They're called Out of the Darkness Walks. There's community walks. It's at 10 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday morning. They're done all throughout the state. There's several of them throughout the state throughout the month of September and October. This is the closest one to us, is the Westport Walk.
So it's at 10 a.m., it's not an evening?
No, it's not an evening, and like I said, it's just about 1 mile.
You've done the evening?
I've done the evening as well, which is in New York City. There's been a couple that have been, they did one in Chicago once, they did one in Texas once, but I've done New York City. That is one time in June, and that is actually a 26-mile overnight walk. But these are these short community walks that they do once a year that are closer to home.
Okay, thank you. Great recap. Kate, do we have any public comments, emails, anything?
I have not received any.
Okay. And I think we've heard from our public, so, okay. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request for the increase in the transfer station fees.
I have a suggested motion, if you want, that
Okay.
lays out each one.
Okay. So first, are there any questions or comments, any more discussion we'd like to have on this?
Well, I would just say, in terms of discussion, I think it was a terrific, presentation, and the public comments were, helpful. I'll just say for my own purposes that I'm inclined to vote for the municipal solid waste increases, but I'm not as comfortable on the permit fees for our residents. So I feel I'm likely to vote for one, but not the other. I think taken in tandem, I think it was very clear about the necessity for the first set of increases. I'm not as sold on the second, and I'll probably vote accordingly.
From the 40 to the 50?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's, in terms of people and, ability to pay to this town and the length of time between increases, I know those are mitigating factors in favor of increasing, but I think, taken together, I think it's just a little bit overreaching at this time, especially if we're going to take a policy of reviewing these rates every other year or so instead of waiting several years. I think we've taken together all the hits that people have been taking in the town and their day-to-day expenses that, perhaps we can forego the $10.
Are you suggesting just not increasing for the residents with a hauler permit?
Correct.
Okay, so you're saying leave the residents without a hauler?
Right.
Okay.
But do you think that's fair?
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I apologize. No, I wouldn't increase the hauling fees on the residents, whether they have a private hauler or they're, or not. I would not raise those fees.
Either one.
But I'm fine with raising the fees that we charge.
You want to raise
Yeah,
the
The
tipping
tipping
fees,
fee.
but not the sticker fees.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
The question I have is, if we were to do that, what is the loss that we would be carrying? Is there a loss still?
Is there a loss? Overall, the transfer station does not support itself through the
Correct.
fees.
Correct.
So I don't think we worked up what the net is, but Ed had included in his memo what he thought the,
Well, I'm looking at the difference of the 64,000 if we were to not increase residential dump permits. What is the current loss that we're carrying based on the increase in fees, and then, the tipping increase will not cover the loss.
no. But if you look at Table B, fiscal '23, we assume a deficit of $560,000
Right.
in operations. So,
So I hear your point. My concern is our residents, because we do have this loss, we're gonna be paying for it in the budget.
There are different, obviously, right, it's, in any scenario, it wasn't going to become like a $0 operation. So it's a question of how much of a deficit it's going to run at. If we do the first set of increases, that deficit will decrease. If we do the second set, it would decrease a little bit more, but it's still not gonna get you to a 0. So, obviously it may affect other budgetary items or taxing or running, the transfer station at a deficit. But for myself, I just, if we're going to increase on one side, if we're going to be looking at it every couple of years anyway, I would rather hold off on the sticker fees. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually not deciding that this cost increase is not going to take place. The question is, are we going to ask the users of this service to pay, or are we going to ask taxpayers at large to pay? And I think as a general matter, I tend to err on the side of asking the people who use specific services to pay for what they use and to not burden other taxpayers with that. And the reason I think that is that as a general matter, users of services are more judicious in their use of that service than they would be if it were just a generalized tax increase that was not attached to a particular service. So I regret that any fees have to increase. The fact is, though, that we're in an inflationary environment, and in the scheme of things, this just adds to the list, and it's unfortunate. But I don't want us to get into the habit of just saying, no, we're going to inoculate these people, because we're not. What we're actually saying is, instead of asking those people to pay, we're going to ask all these other taxpayers to pay and just add to their burden, modestly, but still adding to their burden. And so I would be inclined to support Ed's recommendation in total.
Marcy?
I agree with John.
Right, okay. Any further thoughts, any further discussion? Okay, so Kate, how do you want me to do this?
well, the motion is to approve the changes to the transfer station fees, and it lays out commercial tipping fees increase from 94 per ton to 118 per ton. Residential permit fees for residents without a hauler increase from 120 to 150. Residential permit fees for residents with a hauler increase from 40 to 50. The cost of a second residential permit will remain free. The third residential permit sticker would increase from 40 to 50. The cost for the first permit for seniors would remain free, and the second and third permits for seniors would increase from 40 to 50. So if you ask for a motion to that.
So do you want me to make a motion have a motion on each one of these?
Nope. I think, if the board is willing, so Mike would vote against.
Okay.
And, if you get enough in favor on the whole motion as a whole.
Okay.
then go
Okay.
forward.
How old do you have to be a senior to get the senior deal?
You're not there yet.
You're close. You just had a birthday. So you want me to read everything you just said?
No,
Okay.
I think you can ask
Okay.
for a motion.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the charges to the transfer station fees that were just recited by Kate? John moves, Marcy seconds, all in favor? Okay, opposed? Mike opposes? Okay, so it's 4-1. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request for a special appropriation of $169,000 for engineering services for the Hanson Road Bridge, and Ed is going to explain this request.
I get to see Ed show.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Thank you again. We're going to talk a little bit about Hanson Road Bridge. In front of you is a transfer request of $169,000. The little background on the Hanson Road Bridge itself. A short while back, we had noticed a sinkhole on the edge of the roadway by the bridge. A couple of our crew guys had noticed it. Stuck their head underneath the bridge and noticed that one of the abutments had some serious cracking along the joints. Brought it to the attention of the Assistant Director of Public Works, who immediately brought our structural engineer out that we use to handle our bridges. Same gentleman that's handling the dam and the Rings End Bridge. Quite knowledgeable young man. He came out right away. Put together a quick scheme of what we needed to do to protect the area. Was out there within a week to do a analysis on the entire bridge itself. And what we did find is on the northwest corner, we have some settlement of the foundation and footing for the bridge abutment itself. That's where you're seeing the cracking from. We also found out that there was a scour hole about 7 feet deep in that corner, or that end of the bridge. If you go to the south side of the bridge and you look down, you'll see the bottom of the river. Go to the north side, look down, and you don't see the bottom. All of that material now has moved downstream. We did attempt to, and we did contact FEMA to see if there was an opportunity to include it in any of the declarations that we have going on. We thought that maybe there'd be an opportunity with this one. What they commented on was that we'd have to sign off and declare that the damage that we found was specific to one storm and one storm only. And unfortunately, I can't do that. There's no way for me to pinpoint exactly when it happened. I can tell you it's happened over time. Not just one storm, but many storms. I can tell you what we're doing now, though. We've protected the area. If you're going up there, you'll see that there's barrels and cones along the north side of the roadway. I put a 20-foot steel plate, inch thick, across that whole bridge on that side. More belts and suspenders than anything else. Our engineer did say we're able to drive over it. It's still safe, in his opinion, in that area, but I prefer to keep people off of it as best I can and spread out the weight of any of the vehicles that are driving over it. So that's going to help with longevity. We went out and had one of our other consultants give us a proposal. We would have used the gentleman that normally does the inspections. The only problem is this bridge is going to require a hydraulic analysis. I actually had to put the bridge back the way it was with an opening the same size that FEMA used to do their design and hydraulic studies for the 100 and 500 year storm up in those areas. So I needed specific engineering done on this. Thus, the proposal you see in front of you for a transfer of 196 comes from the company that we normally use to do hydraulics and bridge would be Ty and Bond. They're going to be doing this work with us. We already have a surveyor in place to come out and do the work. We'll be doing a temporary repair tomorrow morning. We're going to fill in the scour hole. We're going to put some support, if we can, underneath the footing that's there that looks like it has settled. This is more for not to stop any additional settling, but any type of instantaneous dropping of the footing. So what we're basically going to do is take that hole, fill it, push stuff underneath the footings to support any substantial settlement. We are continually monitoring this once a week. I'm out there every day looking at that to make sure nothing's changing out there. And we'll continue to do that until we get this design done. We did attempt to see if there was any lot SIP fundings for this bridge repair and design. Unfortunately, it doesn't meet the criteria for lot SIP. I'm sorry, it doesn't meet the criteria for the local bridge program. The timeline had ended June 1st or May 31st of this year. We will see if it comes back around and if funding is available early next year and they open up the local bridge program for the state, I'm going to apply for it. The cost to repair this bridge is somewhere around $1.5 million, design included. Right now, it does not meet the lot SIP program because it's less than 20 feet wide. It's only 4 to 15 feet wide. Same thing with the federal bridge program. It needs to be 20 feet or greater. Excuse me 1 second. And finally, there are some work that we're doing because the bridge abuts the Weber and Country Club. I'm working with the site supervisor up there to get that area cleaned up so we can get in there tomorrow and do some more work. Any questions? Yes.
So it was last inspected in 2016. Is there a program as to how often bridges of this type that are 86 years old are inspected?
The ones greater than 20 feet are inspected every 6 years, 4 to 6 years, depending on the location and the type of roadway.
Mm-hmm.
These smaller bridges and culverts, they call them, are expanded sometimes 10 years, 15 years. It really depends on the location of the bridge and whether there's any deficiencies in them.
Is it a heavy lift, excuse the pun, maybe to perform these inspections in terms of cost? Because I would imagine that, you know, the fact that we're going to do this now and it's somewhat emergent is probably a little bit more than, you know, if it was part of a program of inspection and planned, replacement.
I'll compare it to what we're doing on Rings End Road Bridge now in Old Kings Highway South. Those are planned upgrades to get us from a rating that's below where it should be in poor up to a fair condition. So these inspections have pointed out deficiencies that we're going to address now. So I think that's what you're talking about, intermittent.
Well, if it's
repairs,
6 years or 10 years, perhaps maybe that, if it's not too much expense or difficulty, you know, perhaps those inspection periods should be reduced or at least the age of the structure be considered when contemplating how long you're going to take in between inspection periods.
It should be. It should be. And I think some of the things that we're taking out of lessons learned here are with some of the storms that we had where we have to go look first. So I have a list that I keep now of where I need to go. If you showed me the design plans for this bridge about 6 months ago and asked me if I was going to have a problem with this footing, I would have told you there's no way. These things are supposed to be on piles. From what our engineers told us, because the depth of the footing is much, much thicker than the design, he believes that they didn't put in piles in. They put it on a floating footing, which doesn't bode well for us right now, because now we have a failure on the bridge abutment. That's what we found so far. That's from all we could see with the water in there, feeling around. You're supposed to be able to feel those piles close to the edge, and he wasn't able to do that. More to come on that later as we start to get a little bit more into the design.
Thanks.
Sure.
So a couple of things. This is just for the engineering design. I want people, I guess, to understand that the actual work to fix it will be a lot more. Yes, you said it might be $1 million or so.
Yeah, the estimate I received from our first engineer that did the overall evaluations, and it's very, very conservative on his numbers,
Yeah,
was 1.7 million.
okay.
That included the design for 360 or 70,000. As you see, the price is $200,000 less than that. So
Right.
that's going to come down as we start to refine the design even more.
Two questions. How many of these smaller bridges do we have? It's not, I just was curious.
I
Okay,
literally gave that list to the first selectman about 2 weeks ago. and
Okay,
I'm
no
trying
problem.
to
Yeah,
remember.
me too.
no problem.
I
And
think
is the,
there's like 20 of this
Okay.
one, and they include culverts too, not just bridges.
in the water that goes underneath Hampton Road Bridge, is this the water that goes down by the Stony Brook? I mean, is this the same kind of
This
water?
is the Stony Brook
It is,
going through.
yeah.
So FEMA has mapped all the way up through the golf course up in even north of that.
Okay.
So there's 100-year floodlines involved.
So Ed, I think what Mike was probably getting at, and I think what our residents wonder is, if we have, I think it's 21 of these smaller, there is a schedule, but we were impacted. So is there any plans from DPW to take a look at these bridges earlier than they normally would be examined?
Well, my first thing is to go around to them now
Right.
and make sure. And I've been to a lot of them already after the storms with debris removal, whatever type, so the upstream portion was important to me. But there's some that I haven't gone to see. They're more the culverts, but I should go take a look at them also. A yearly schedule would probably not be a bad idea, just to put your eyes on things and make sure that we're not losing material downstream from washouts. This one was big though. This 7-foot deep hole, I never would have imagined it would be there. So a lot of our other bridges held up very, very well in the storm. It doesn't appear this one did.
And the bridge is completely safe to drive over now.
It
The
is.
steel plate is an inch thick.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's only a precaution. It takes the weight of the vehicles and spreads it over the two abutments and the box or the bridge itself. That's 12 inches of concrete there too underneath that asphalt. But I wanted to be careful. It's worth the little bit of money I have to pay for that plate to be there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? No, John, nothing? Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the special appropriation of $169,000 for engineering services for the Hanson Road Bridge? Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Ed. Next item on the agenda, we start with transfers, right, Kate?
Yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $9,877 to the Darien Fire Department Motorized Equipment Repair. And Kate's going to go over this item.
This one is Darien, and, I really can't add anything to what the chief had said. They had a lot of repairs that they had to do this year. The majority of these funds are coming from unexpended balances within their budget, so I think that was a good job on their part.
Kate, have they, I know Brian does a lot of repairs over there. If there are more repairs, and did they lose a repair person is what I'm trying to get
No.
at? No,
No.
okay, okay. Okay, any other questions on this? No? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $9,877 to the Darien Fire Department Motorized Equipment Repair? John moves. Mike seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $3,576 to the New Roten Heights Fire Department. Heating
Okay,
fuel.
Heating fuel. So one of the reasons that they're over budget, they had to remove insulation in their attic to do the asbestos abatement. And so their costs ran higher than they anticipated. They expect them to come back down as they're replacing the insulation this year as part of the budget process. So again, the majority of the funds for this have come from within their own accounts on expended balances.
Okay, any further discussion on this? All right, if not, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $3,576 to Norotan Heights Fire Department heating fuel? And Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $34,951 to the Department of Public Works electricity. And we have Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works, here to explain.
So, end of the year transfer to clean up a lot of the accounts you're going to see on here over mine. And the budgetary amount for electric was lower this year. Of course, there is increase in some of the unit costs on a lot of the commodities you're going to see throughout the year. The other thing is I've been running, since COVID, I've been running this building with additional airflow as recommended. So you're going to see that as I run the airflow units here, that I'm going to need electricity to do that. But we have done some other things to take care of that. We've done a full shutdown on the weekends. And we just finished recently, over the past year, an LED project in the Mather Center to reduce some of our electric costs.
Okay.
Quick question, do you think that airflow will be a thing that you'll be doing going forward, or with the numbers going down, thankfully, is that a measure that you'll still need to take there, or how does that get worked out?
And that's probably a good conversation for me to have with the health director to see how he feels about that. But I will tell you that I'm going to make some adjustments in the next couple of months with balancing this building with regards to AC and with heat. We have like 1 or 2 valves left on the heating system, and then we're going to balance this building. We'll probably check it again in 9 months next summer to see how it's working also. But it's a process to get down the airflow and to keep the place, feeling comfortable when you're in the building too. And that may include some reduction in airflow.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions for Ed on this? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $34,951 to DPW electricity? Mike moves. John seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Terrific. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $6,590 to Rose Electricity. So on the agenda, it says 6950, and the correct amount is 6590, just a little,
Sorry. Transpose the numbers.
Transpose, exactly. Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works, is here to explain this item.
So as you see in the explanation below, we did have an uptick in the use of electricity over at the garage, as well as the unit costs being increased too.
Any questions, discussion? No? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the transfer of $6,590 to Rhodes Electricity? Mike moves. John seconds. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $16,555 to Department of Public Works motor, fuel, and lubricants. Ed will explain this.
So the gas prices we get are bid in December of the year while I'm doing my budget. So what ends up happening is what I don't get to do from the January to July is know what the price of gasoline was. So what ends up happening is this past year went up $1 per gallon more. I actually, to be honest with you, I thought that 16,000 was low. I thought it was gonna be a little bit more, but we were able to, I know Parks and Rec and DPW both, we did reduce our uses in some of the vehicles too, to see if we could save some money. I knew it was gonna be a little bit higher, but anything we could do to reduce that usage, I think we were able to do.
Okay, any questions, discussion? No? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve a request to transfer $16,555 to DPW Motor Fuel and Lubricants? Sarah moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $6,553 to facilities, heating fuel, and Ed Gentile, would you explain this?
Sure. We did have an increase in use in this building over the fiscal year. And there was a small increase in the heating fuel unit cost. And this item is for the town hall. Yes.
So why do you think there's an increase in use? Is it just less efficient
No, you know.
boilers, or are there more projects going on in town hall, or?
I think we started having more
In-person
use-
meeting.
In-person.
In-person meetings, okay.
I told the first selectman I wouldn't blame her for the heat use in the building going up, but
She likes a little warmer in her
if
office?
it wasn't her office at all, it was just the rest of the building.
Plus, I thought there was a lot of hot air and there was, sort of self-heating here. We didn't have to actually use the heater. Okay.
Okay, just pile on.
I'll take my share of the blame because
You like it toasty in there too?
Well, I send Ed emails mentioning that,
I'm cold.
yeah, things like that.
Okay, if there isn't any more discussion.
No, there's a lot of discussion, right? We just want to shut it down.
Yeah. Okay, any
Quick,
other,
ask for a motion.
any real questions for Ed on this one? Okay. May I have a motion to transfer $6,553 to facilities heating? Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay.
It is the Ed Show.
And next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $6,225 to the Department of Public Works Motorized Equipment Repair. We have Ed Gentile here. Ed, would you explain this?
We had, over the past 6 months at the end of the fiscal year, we were seeing an increase in cost for parts for a lot of our vehicles, some of the larger parts. At the same time, we were seeing that they couldn't actually get us the parts too, so we were way behind on a lot of our repairs. But this is generally the account that Brian uses to do all the repairs for the town vehicles and our equipment at the town hall.
Just outside of the police and fire,
Correct.
Ed's budget bears the cost of repairing all the town vehicles,
Okay,
Sometimes them too.
sometimes I'm too.
okay. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $6,225 to the Department of Public Works Motorized Equipment Repair? Mike moves, John seconds, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $8,165 to paving services. Ed Gentile, would you explain this?
Sure. As you all are aware of, last year we had some horrific rainstorm events. What I sat down and did with our highway supervisor, went over some priorities with regards to drainage. I can honestly say this is money well spent. We went back and took out a lot of deficient catch basins, changed tops, made them bigger, did some piping work too. So this you'll see is one of the reasons that this item is over on paving is we buy our drainage structures and piping out of this item, this line item here for the garage.
Okay. Any other questions for Ed on this one? All right, I think that answered a big one. Seeing, no, good, okay. So seeing no more questions, may I have a motion to approve a request to transfer $8,165 to paving services? Mike moves. Marcy seconds. Sorry, John. And if it's unanimous, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $6,120 to Department of Public Works Professional Services. And Ed Gentile, would you explain this?
Sure. We have our computer software that handles our RDA sticker sales and our point of sale software also. And I have to say, this has probably been my most difficult project, if you will, in my department. I don't have, there's a strong skills in software. I do depend on a lot of folks to do a lot of things for us. We do have a company that comes in and cleans up our databases for us. We did have some problems with our offsite software people, our database storage. All of this came so that we could reconcile and actually sell stickers. We had to pay quite a bit of money to get it back up and running again. So we are trying to get away from a certain process for our point of sales, trying to bring it back to a one-person group right now, so they don't have to deal with multiple sources. When there is a problem, tends to get a lot of finger pointing on whose fault it really is. When I run out of, when I can't get the computer to turn on, or I can't get data, or I have a freeze on our software. So,
How long are those contracts usually, Ed?
I go year to year with these folks right now.
Okay. Okay.
Is,
Mike?
is this something that, John and his people look at it under that technology or information technology umbrella?
So, a good question. We are more strategic than tactical, and so we're not looking to actually get involved in individual decisions like that, but really think about how those decisions are made and ask questions around things like efficiency and customer service and all that. And hopefully what will come out of this committee are some strategic recommendations against which a decision like this could be anchored.
Excellent.
Any other discussion? No? Okay, if not, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $6,120 to Department of Public Works Professional Services? John moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $178,911 to the solid waste disposal. Ed Gentile, would you explain this?
See that there's a lot of froms where I'm taking the money to cover this. And I've been here 8.5 years now, and my budget has always come under. This is the first year it's come over, and this item right here is the exact reason that I'm over. This is the transfer station solid waste disposal. This is the MSW we were just talking about. It shows that I had to pay city carting more money to remove the MSW waste from our transfer station site. More money than I budgeted for. What I did show in the description, that part of that is a revenue generator, and we generated more than $274,000 above my budgeted revenue line item. So as much as I don't like seeing this number here and having to do such a large transfer, I understand why it happened. The sad part about it is it's going to happen again next year when I come this time of year again. And it's going to happen because I put a budget in December before this thing took off, before I could predict when it was going to happen or what was going to happen. So I'm already tightening my belt across the board on other items. Just keep it as low as I possibly can.
Are you anticipating next year is around the same number? No.
I'm going to say no,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard for me to tell you right now what those haulers are going to do in the next couple months after
Right.
the rates are raised. That's what's going to drive this number up or down, right? If somebody still thinks this is a really good deal, maybe they start to come. If City Carding decides to come here, well, that's going to drive this number up. But it's also going to drive our revenue number up. It's going to close the gap, though, on those two. So that's my hope with the rate increase, is to
Right.
address this here next year, so that the gap is closed. It's smaller.
But we're only gonna be $2 less than the top number out there, so,
These haulers are wise businessmen,
okay.
and they will look at every dollar and every penny, and they will try to do their best to make as much money as they possibly can, because it's a business.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion, questions on this item? No? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $178,911 to solid waste disposal? Marcy moves, John seconds. All in favor? Okay. Unanimous.
Just trying to spread it out a little bit.
I hadn't picked up on that, actually.
Okay, Ed, thank you.
Oh, you done?
Good night,
You're on
Ed.
a roll.
Wow.
Good night, Ed.
Close it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $205,972 to accrued leave redemption, and I'll ask Kate if she can explain this.
So, as it says in the description, when an employee leaves service, or in some cases moves from a position where they're entitled to comp time to a position where they're not entitled to comp time, we have to have payouts of certain leave balances. Sometimes we get a very senior employee retiring, and we have some very large payouts. So, probably a decade ago, we started budgeting for this. And we've had the budget number pretty stable at about $100,000. I did ask, as part of this, I asked Jen to take a look at it, and we have been running above the $100,000 for the last several years. So we will be looking at, in next year's budget, in the fiscal '24 budget, increasing the budget line to maybe 150 or 175. This 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This actually covers about 16 employees. But we had some, as I said, some very senior people retiring that would have had probably the maximum amount of vacation time at their retirement or termination, and some people who are still entitled to pay out of a portion of their sick leave. So I do have a breakdown if anybody wanted to see it, where it went, but.
So give us an idea for budget for next year, what are you thinking?
Right now, Jen and I have talked about possibly 150, 175. I think if we knew somebody very senior was planning to retire, we might bump that up. Because as part of the audit every year, we have to calculate the value of the compensated absences that would be paid out. If we were to cease operations on June 30th, what would we have to pay out to everybody? So we know the value of people's.
Right, kind of mark to the market every.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so, you know, if we knew that somebody who had a large payout due them was planning to retire, we might bump it up for that.
Okay.
But otherwise, it really is a, you just don't know, you can't really plan. So we try not to plan for too many, or try not to assume too many unknowns. And the other thing that can happen is it can be offset by instances where, and like you see some of the sources here being full-time salary, where a person leaves and we have a large payout to them, but they're not replaced for a number of months,
Right.
so we have a balance left in their salary account that offsets the transfer, or the offsets the cost.
Or replace at a lower,
Or replaced at a lower, yeah.
okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, there were 16 people that are retiring this year, is that what you're saying?
No,
Roughly?
some people, well, let's see, some people, it wasn't retiring, they
But
just,
they're moving to a
they
different
left, they
department
moved to
or
a different job.
something.
We had, one, we had two people who, or three people actually, who were promoted out of positions where they were entitled to compensatory time, and now they don't earn comp time anymore.
Mhm.
So we had to pay them out when they were no longer eligible for it. And that actually is a better deal for us to pay them out when they get promoted, because we pay them out at their old rate. We don't want to pay them out when they retire at a higher rate, so.
Is that a significant increase in movement in that?
Yeah, we had a lot of movement.
Yeah.
We had some very senior people, we had a senior employee, several senior employees at the police department retire.
Right, okay.
Dave Keating, senior person here, retiring. Our facilities supervisor for the parks. So we had a number of senior people going.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $205,972 to accrued leave redemption? Marcy moves. Mike seconds. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $157,727 to legal fees. Kate, will you explain?
Sure, we went over budget. I ran a report showing all the cases for the year to get a sense for you of where these big numbers came from. So probably the biggest is tax appeals. The cost of legal fees related to tax appeals was over $200,000. One individual appeal by itself was approaching $100,000. We also had a significant sum related to I guess I'll call it a border dispute, property line dispute. We spent about $18,000 on Rings End Bridge, determining who owned what. Great Island, the research into the work as part of the negotiations of the purchase was a large contributor. And Eversource, our ongoing interactions with them regarding their desire to cut all the trees down. It's a big number.
Where are we on that so far?
Eversource for this fiscal year was $25,000.
Okay, any discussion on this? Questions?
So this doesn't include any rate fees that we may have approved, because those would become effective in the next
This is
fiscal period,
fiscal
right?
22.
Okay.
I mean, out of the whole cost, it does include our retainer that was paid for fiscal 22.
Right, okay.
Any other questions on legal fees? No? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $157,727 to legal fees? Mike moves. John seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $4,576 to paramedic services. Kate, can you explain?
Right, so, we're obligated to provide paramedic service. And the way we do that is we contract with Stanford Emergency Medical Services, or SEMS, to provide that. And the way the contract works is we guarantee that they will receive a certain amount of income for their services. They bill the people who use their services. We pay the difference between what they've been able to bill and what we've guaranteed. So Our budget for the year was $100,000. That's what we assumed that our share of the cost would be, so we went over that slightly.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the collection rate?
I do not know that.
I mean, we looked at this every year for
Right.
an awful long time.
Well, it used to be
There's-
that the post did the billing, and it's now all handled by SEMS.
Well, this is a lot better. But, I mean, it's a much improved situation. There's always going to be special circumstances where someone can't pay. There's a few recalcitrant for people that won't pay. There's always some noise or leakage in there, and this actually seems pretty close to what we budgeted compared to some prior years. So.
And it is, it's a cost-effective way for us to provide the service, and I think we're getting good service.
I think it's better that they're billing than we are.
Pardon?
I think it is better to have SEMS billing it than we
Yeah.
were.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Any further discussion? Okay, just saw you smiling, because you're just a happy guy. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $4,576 of paramedic services? John moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to transfer $111 to treasurer's salary. And I think Kate will cover this.
Yeah. As you know, we did, a few months ago, we did the transfer to cover all the wage increases that were granted during the year. You approved the elected officials, actually this was approved, I believe, at the start of their term, which was 21, right? There was a slight miscalculation in the transfer needed to cover the full salary for the treasurer. And the Board of Finance rules are that regardless of the dollar amount, if the transfer is crossing department lines, it needs to go through the full process. So, yes, we're bringing you a transfer for $111.
I think I'm guilty of that, sorry.
Yeah, I think you
I
are.
was going to actually have a little chat, but, okay, any further discussion on this item?
But I think John's going to move it since.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the request to transfer $111 to treasury salary? Okay, John moves. And Mike seconds. All in favor?
Reluctantly.
Unanimous, thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the August 22nd, that was a regular meeting. Are there any edits, deletions, corrections?
Nope, they look good.
Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. Okay, agenda review, are there any topics board members would like to see on future agendas?
Could you remind us when the flooding study update will be?
The flooding study, as I mentioned in my first Selectmen's report, will be October 3rd.
October 3rd. All right.
And we are, it's going to be a very complete discussion, so I really encourage people to share that with the community. We are hoping that we have a good audience, but we will also have this available. I'm going to ask Channel 79 if they can have it as its own entity for people to watch at their convenience.
Great.
Okay, but a lot of interest out there, so we're really looking forward to having a great audience. Okay, if that is it, may I have a motion to adjourn? Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. This is details on the